Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the Ground Up Real Time Solutions. We're here with real time strategies for MWBE businesses. We're so excited to have you join us for another one of our episodes. I am just encouraged by all of the comments and everyone that keeps tuning in as we demonstrate in real time what it means to collaborate. Queen Strategy Partners put together this show as an opportunity for us to really be of service to our MWBEs and to put you in a place and space where we're giving you real time solutions for the real time issues that we are facing in COVID-19. So, Danielle Douglas, Nicole Valentine, Esquire, and myself came together as business owners, and we are excited about the fact that we're able to bring you content and guests that are experts in their space and that can give you the real-time solutions that you desire. So it's great for me to get to introduce every Tuesday, 9 a.m., my co-host, Danielle Douglas. So I'm going to turn it over to Danielle.
Good morning, everyone. As I always say, I know you're probably like, she's going to say it again, but every Tuesday morning, I get excited and re-energized because we continue to bring you great guests with very informative information to take your business to the next level. And so, last week we had a great dialogue with two phenomenal guests, and the topic was how to find and manage employees during COVID-19. We know that great employees is a cornerstone to having a great business, and it is really a key factor in having a solid foundation for a successful business. So we wanted to build on that and continue to provide you great information on how you can build a solid foundation for your business. So today's topic is really building a solid foundation to propel you to success, right? Because we have talked about time and time again that during COVID-19, we have felt like we're in survival mode, but we really want to position you to thrive and get to the next level. And so with that said, we have another great guest, Mark Hayles, who is with us this morning. And Mark is the founder and managing partner of Better Local Business Agency. And it is an innovative technology-led business support agency. He has more than 20 years experience as a business professional, having worked in several functional C-level roles, including accounting, operations, marketing, sales. Those are all key factors in having a solid foundation in Europe and the US. He's also an educator specializing in business and technology subject matters. And to date, Mark has trained more than 500 business leaders, emphasizing scaling strategies, operations management, enabling technology, and the use of data for effective digital and social media engagement. So he brings a fresh perspective to the NWBE market space as a thought leader on the organization and utilization of data to improve NWBE access and participation. And his goal is to design and build solutions that transform local communities into vibrant economic hubs. So without further ado, we want to introduce you and say hello and give a warm welcome to our guest, Mark Hayles. How are you doing this morning, Mark?
I am very well, Danielle. Thank you so much for having me this morning. And how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Okay.
Tuesday morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So
and the team too.
I was about to say, all the engagement that you've done with NWBE, what do you find to be like three of their main challenges?
Okay, so my immediate thought when I listen to that question is just three. There are many challenges that face MWBEs face, Danielle, but we know the usual ones. I mean, there is issues with capital, and that is a big deal right now. especially given the fact that businesses that seek opportunities to participate on those opportunities and to effectively deliver on those opportunities, they need capital. We know, just take the city, for example. The city has a number of programs, the contract financing loan fund, for example, and there's a great deal of emphasis on capital. But the challenge that many businesses face is how do they qualify for these funds? Millions of dollars are available, lots of capital out there, very low cost in terms of interest. But how is it accessed? And I just want to share with you just a couple of things in terms of my observation. As you know, I worked with the city and a number of CDFIs over the last 14 or year and a half or so, working with the contract financing loan fund. And I saw, upfront and personally, if you like, some of the challenges that these businesses face. And one of the big areas. Sorry?
Can you share with the guests before you move forward what's a contract financing loan? They may not even be familiar with that as a loan product.
So the city, through SBS, Department of Small Business Services, they have a program to support companies that have a contract with a city agency or with New York City EDC. And in fact, this fund enables businesses to borrow up to $1 million at 3% APR, which is extremely low. And I believe during the pandemic, the interest rate was even as low as 0%, to really encourage more businesses to find the capital that they need. And so it's available. If you have a contract with a city, if you don't know about it, certainly do contact SBS or one of the business solution centers. They're in all the boroughs, and they'll be able to direct you and give you information on that fund. But the challenge that many small businesses face when it comes to capital is not the availability of capital. Let me just make that point very clear. There's a lot of capital out there, and with interest rates where they are right now at near 0%, capital is very, very cheap. But the problem that many small businesses face is the challenge when it comes to qualification. The eligibility criteria that applies to capital is, in many cases, a very significant hurdle. Here are some of the challenges. What is your credit score? Now, you know that many small businesses, minority businesses in particular, and owners are challenged by their credit score. And you might think, well, a credit score of 600, 650, even 700, many business owners really challenge to reach that mark. And so that is an immediate qualifying criteria. But also, they will talk about collateral. All right. You think about that as a business owner. How many small business owners have the necessary capital that says, okay, I can put up, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. It is a huge challenge. And so whilst there's capital out there, Danielle, whilst there's capital, the question is the eligibility and how you're able to scale that hurdle. Now, I do know that there are ways in which the city is providing support with that. There are ways in which you can improve capital. I know that a number of the CDFIs, when I say CDFIs, I'm talking about community development financial institutions that are out there that can really assist and help businesses access the capital the CDFIs, they're able to help businesses rebuild, I should say, their capital. And there are ways in which this can be done. And I would encourage business owners to really think about, if you are struggling with your credit score, if you're struggling with collateral, really take the opportunity to speak to a number of CDFIs. And I can give you 3 that I worked with in the city. There is Buck Capital is one. There is True Fund is another. There is Pursuit Lending, formerly Excelsior Growth Fund. And there are other local agencies in Harlem. There is the Harlem Commonwealth Council on 125th Street. There are organizations in Brooklyn. There's SoBro in the Bronx. There are many support agencies that are around the city that can really give some insight and as it comes to, supporting you with capital, improving your credit score. I know that Capital One, for example, had a credit card to help businesses to recover and to build capital. There's lots of little initiatives that are out there that can help build capital. So capital is really, really important. And someone asked me, what do you think long term? I mean, I if I had the influence on the whole capital program, I would really try to switch the emphasis from collateral and credit scores in terms of one of the driving eligibility criteria, a couple of the driving eligibility criteria, to much more around experience. If you think about this, a small business that has a contract with the city, they have the experience to do the work. Okay, if you're working with a general contractor, you have a project like yourselves, you access opportunities all the time from a professional services perspective. And so you have the experience to deliver. Okay, now if you base it on the ability to deliver, what I call the experience factor, all right, you will find that many businesses will get through, they will qualify, they'll get the job done. The painter, in other words, can paint, the electrician can do the wiring, they can do the work. So if access to capital was based on experience, it would be a different story for many minority businesses. But there are challenges there. The other areas I would think is opportunities too. Now there are lots of opportunities that are that are out there. Many of you would the city is really pushing hard in terms of meeting their utilization goals. The comptroller is really holding agencies to account with the grade book that, are you doing well? You get an A. If you're doing fantastic, you get an A. But if you're not meeting those utilization goals, which I believe is 30% for the city and for the state also, they are held to account. And so, the city agencies are, through City Records Online, are publishing opportunities at a state level. There is the contract reporter. Again, these resources are online, and I talk about resources later on. And opportunities is key. So you need opportunities, okay? Not just and I would say this to small businesses, not just in the public sector. A lot of folks are looking to the city, local, and state government for opportunities, but also I would say spread your wings, diversify, think about the private sector. Yes, don't put all your eggs into one basket, as my mother used to tell me. Try and diversify so that your portfolio includes both private and public sector. Now, it's a great time for small businesses. And in the moment that we are in right now, the emphasis, as minority businesses, and I'm sure the audience is not just minority businesses, but small businesses in particular, businesses are open, yes, to see how they can increase supply diversity. I know Con Edison, for example, has a tremendous, and Verizon too, have tremendous supply diversity portfolios. They are really interested in local suppliers. There's nothing wrong in approaching some of these organizations, their diversity teams, and say, listen, this is who I am, this is what I do, build your capability statement, and submit, share that with them. And they might take you on as a supplier. They would certainly have some kind of a pre-qualification process, but certainly, do approach these organizations, diversify your portfolio in terms of your clients. And that's really really important. And the other challenge I would say many businesses face with is experience, the ability to, in terms of capacity. Now, looking at some of the data, I see that a lot of the type of contracts or opportunities that are available require businesses to have a significant amount of capability in terms of capital and so forth. And experience is a factor. All right. So if you think about, a technical bridge construction or road construction or those type of work, it really requires a certain type of contractor to deliver on those work. And the sad thing is, businesses need to build up capacity. They need to build capacity at a high level. They need to grow that business and demonstrate capability. So I think in summary, it's a long answer to the question. I look at three things. I think, capital is certainly one. I think opportunity is another, and experience, and I would add on to that management and the ability to run an organization effectively at those higher levels are really key things. And those are the challenges that businesses face. It's a long answer, Danielle, but hopefully that is helpful.
A long necessary answer because it's a lot of more. I just want to build on that because you were such great insight. So what additional core building blocks should MWP have in place to create a solid foundation for success?
All right, so building blocks. I'm a great believer in people. People are the one that builds organization, and the team is important. Here, I'm going to share with you a story. And I embed myself in a number of businesses, and I see the way they operate. And I can tell you, one of the standout criteria for me are those that have good people in place and good leadership, good management. All right, that's a fundamental building block. All right, attention to detail. I'm a son of the island of Jamaica, right? And where I come from, it's an attitude, no problems, man. All right, you kind of get it done when you get it done, and you turn up when you turn up, right? But let me say this: discipline is really important. Being on time, attention to detail, studying the numbers, understanding your business, understanding the trends. That might require learning and experience. And I find that those business owners, certainly, who recognize that they're not always the smartest person in the room, and being able to have the right people in those, square pegs in square holes, or round pegs in round holes, is really, really important. And it's a challenge for those who are founders of the business to delegate and to trust and to have people, and not be swayed by the idea of always having family members and relatives in positions where, in many cases, that they are not really qualified to run those positions. Yes, you have to think about it. And I know cost is a factor, but having the right people, having the right discipline is important. One has to think about, having the right culture within your organization. I'm talking about organization a lot here because it really matters to me, right? And also, I think having the right systems and processes. If you look at any large organization, the ability to do the things consistently and persistently in the right order, and have a commitment to improving a process and improving how you do things. And that requires you to be able to review, to be able to be critical, to be able to take feedback and say, you know what, you're not doing that right, and how do we make it better, is really, really valuable and important. So having the systems in place to make that happen is and the processes, in fact, and having those processes being reviewed on a regular basis is important. But let me just finish off with, in terms of a building block. We're living in the 21st century. COVID-19 has taught everyone a very important lesson. And I would say a critical building block today is the use and the application of technology. Businesses need to understand that it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. We're seeing today that if you're a restaurant, you need to be able to have the ability to take payments online and process those without customers in store. If you are, a contracted business now, the city is moving to a digital platform with all the documentation flows and so forth. Well overdue, I would say. All right. So the way in which businesses today engages each other, engages in terms of other small businesses and customers and suppliers and so forth, and the way you engage large businesses more particularly, if you're a subcontractor, you need to think about how your business is structured, how you're applying technology, how you're using technology on a regular basis. And if you are not savvy, there are lots of training out there that can help you with that. So having the right people, having the right discipline, and having also cash flow in your business. And I'll just finish on that point. A lot of businesses live paycheck to paycheck, very much so. They live domestically, right? And I've seen so many businesses 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they have very little equity in their businesses, right? Because they've simply not quoted correctly. They don't build in profitability. They don't build reserves in their business. And so that business never grows. And you're living by project to project. Okay. And it's great. It's an income for a year. It's $100,000, $200,000. But most of that money, it's a lifestyle. But if businesses are serious, it's about, not just having cash flow, but building reserves also, so that when it comes to a COVID scenario or a pandemic or any type of what I call shock to the economic and business systems, you do have the means to at least weather the storm for 3-6 months or so, and have that capacity built in to cope with those stresses that occur during a situation like this. And it is sad, but it's not a surprise that many businesses, but more so minority businesses, are more severely affected by the pandemic. And as I think most of us would have perhaps read the Bloomberg study a few months ago, I think it came out in April and May, which suggests at least up to 40-50% of minority businesses will not recover from this pandemic. They've literally gone out of business. And that's a very, very sad state of affairs, because that has a knock-on effect economically, in terms of underserved communities, in terms of jobs, increased unemployment rates, and the social and economic problems, all of that bring in a multiplying way. So we have to build strong, somebody said build back better. We need to build our business back better as we move forward. Okay.
So
absolutely. I just wanted to say, as a daughter of the island of Jamaica, I understand how we are able to find those people, which is really important. A lot of good points. I hope everyone's taking notes and sharing that out. And just really, there's so many points that you shared that I'll build on, but I'm gonna let Danielle jump in and add another question to our conversation, because this is some rich dialogue for a good foundation.
So I just wanted to touch upon, and it's like, it's divine order that you circle back to cash flow, because when you talked about capital, cash flow was not really addressed. And so I say that because when you talked about a criteria for minority business enterprises getting access to capital, cash flow wasn't one of those factors, but that's a critical factor even when we talk about access to capital. So how do you integrate that? What you said, now obviously building wealth is very important. So you should have reserves and think about that, and profits is critically important. Like you said, when we have a situation when we're dealing with COVID-19, but again, as we circle back with access to capital, cash flow is critically important as well.
So that's a question about cash flow,
right? But I'm saying, right. But
okay. So
as it relates to the capacity, because you did not mention that as a criteria in your opinion in regards to access to capital.
So cash flow, cash flow and capital, there's a distinction between the two. As you need capital initially, if you are starting a business, number one, or if you're thinking about working capital to support a contract or a project that you're working on. But when I teach businesses, I talk about, the importance of working capital, and many businesses don't necessarily grasp the connectivity between, your accounts receivable, for example, what we call current assets, and your current liabilities. And there's a direct, and if you think about businesses that says, Mark, we are selling a lot, yes, we are making a lot of sales, or my business actually grew last year and we were at 250,000, we're now at 700,000, but we're not making any more money. As is a common problem. When you look at your working capital, here's the thing: you are doing a lot of work, yes, you are invoicing customers. Customers are not paying you. Yeah, but you have short-term liabilities, you have suppliers that you have to pay, and they're on net 30 days and all this, and so on. You've got to pay those. More importantly, you've got payroll to meet every 2 weeks, right? Your cash is being eaten up, and it's there's a lag between receiving funds and paying out funds. And for some businesses, that can be very, very severe, to the extent that you can go out of business because you suffer a lack of cash, cash flow. So the idea of having capital now, right, whether it's a line of credit, whether it's a term loan or a short run loan of some kind, that's where the contract financing loan comes in, helps you to smooth those jagged edges, if you like, of your cash flow. So when you go below the line, negative positions, yes, waiting for monies to come in and paying out more, you have that cash to support those, if you like, iterations, those variability in the flows. And that's really, really, really important to have cash flow. Cash flow, lack of it can kill. It's the blood within the business, within the body business, if you like. And if the blood is not flowing, something's going to go wrong, and it's not going to be long before the wheel falls off the wagon. All right, and it's very important to have that. So there is a distinction between cash flow and capital. All right, it's very important, and we can. That's a subject for another time, but I can talk at great length about that. But it's really important to understand if you worked on a project, someone says plan before plan is critical. Many small businesses, I say this, they just don't like the numbers. They just don't like doing the analysis. They don't like looking at what's my profitability. They don't really want to know about the break-even point. I remember working with a client. It was so funny. And I ended up doing a lot of work for this client, which I shouldn't have done. I was told, Mark, why are you doing all that work? And I says, it's important for me to learn and also to help the client understand. And I had to break things down to, okay, this was a person that was buying a product. So there was an idea of how much is the unit price for each of these products, what is the direct cost, what is the profitability, what is the break-even point, what is the contribution. So I was able to, and then the contribution times so many units, what is your fixed cost, are you making any money, and was able to lay this out for the individual and to say, well, this is how much money you are actually going to make when you absorb all the cost into this, all right? Your fixed cost and your indirect cost. And I'm talking cost in here for a while because this is the type of language that business really need to understand. Successful businesses know this language inside out. It's not enough, guys, to say, I know how to paint, I know how to run the wiring, but how are you costing out a project, a short run or a long run project? How are you costing that out? How much profits are you making? And that leads directly in terms of a thread to the point that many small businesses don't have profitability because they're not costing out their jobs effectively. All right. So capital, cash flow, they're all connected, Danielle. All right. Very well connected. And businesses need to understand that. It's an educational problem at one level. Yes. And I think business owners need to be motivated enough, okay, to say something that I don't learn, I need to know. And not because you are saying, well, I'm just the manager of the business. If I'm a business owner, I'm going to take the time out to learn some of these fundamentals. And I know a lot of the business support agencies around the city do get in contact with business solution centers. If you're in the city, they do provide technical assistance and they can help with this. And so I say, I know schedules are busy. Yeah, schedules are very busy. But take the time out. There's a lot of online resources that you can use. I mean, thank God for Google. Thank God for online. There's a lot of free stuff out there. We talk about resources. Just go online, Google, break even. you get a tougher.
When I was speaking about cash flow, and you're right, I used the term wrong. What I should have said, but you gave a great explanation on cash flow, so it all worked out in divine order. But I meant profitability. So when you were talking about criteria for lenders and what you believe the criteria is, I should have said profitability was not one of that, to show that you have the ability to pay back the loan. So, thank you for clarifying that, but that's very important. There is a difference between cash flow and profitability.
Danielle, that's a very good point you made. And I should have focused on profitability also, the ability to pay back. And often what lenders look at, and sometimes they don't do it well enough, and I can be critical of some lenders, but I would leave that, is that they if you don't have let's say, I'll give an example. A client of mine had won a contract. It was for, I think this was for $500,000, and it was a contract with one of the agencies to supply, again, some goods. So it's a purchase order agreement to supply, and we kind of knew what the order stream would look like over a 12-month period. There was experience in terms of lending, but here's the problem that she had. There was no prior experience in terms of the business, so the business was new. But the person had a lot of real life world experience in terms of her previous role. And and so when the underwriters or the the council looked at this and said, well, you have no previous track record. What's the profitability? There's no profitability in the company. It's a new company. But I can see the cash flows that are going to flow from this, from day one, what it looks like. We can map it out over 12 months, what this looks like. And so the question was, what is your own personal ability, yes, to even meet the payments if something goes wrong in the business? So it's not just even about the profitability of your business, because the business might be new and have no track record financially. You with me? So, and that this goes back to the first point, right, about access to capital. So it now falls back on you, and it falls back on collateral. Do you have any other sources of income, is often the question asked, that you can make the repayments on this loan if we provided it to you? So you're in a catch-22 straight away, right? Because you can see that this contract is profitable. You can see it's available. You can do it, right? But you have, lenders who look at the hard rule and say, and I find it quite interesting, and I don't want to be too contentious right now, but I've seen situations where certain individuals, the rule might not necessarily be strictly applied to them, all right? And other groups have a tremendous difficulty. So there has to be some, I call it rationalization and practicality, and looking at things differently. And I know we have a new commissioner for small businesses. I would urge Mr. Doris, I believe, Danielle Douglas, to really look at the whole area of experience and look at the ability of the firm to actually deliver the contract. And if the city needs to set up some kind of a collateral fund, I'm putting it out there, that can, kind of be in place to help businesses that don't have collateral. It's almost like an insurance policy. I think that would be a great thing for small businesses, so that they can say, hey, I need 20,000. It's like an insurance, so that they can utilize that and really look more at the experience. I've done contracts like these, whether in business or in a professional capacity. I've seen people who have worked with some of the largest companies, handle multi-million-dollar budgets, and they come to do a contract for $250,000, and they say, I have no track record. Please, it's foolishness. Makes no sense.
So Stacie, I'm gonna.
Absolutely. I hope that Mr. Doris, Commissioner Doris, will consider that. That would be an excellent idea, a collateral fund for MWBE. So thank you for that, Mark. It definitely just opens up a new way forward with thinking about how we actually thrive post-COVID-19 particularly. And when we talk about capitalizing on being a part of a collective body, to build capacity and economic power, which is what you're talking about with the collateral, I wanted to just go a little bit deeper with your insight there on how we can just capitalize on being a part of a collective body, not doing it by yourself. Queen Strategy Partners, we're 3 companies that came together because we understand that kind of power in collaboration. So we just wanted to get your insight on being a part of a collective body when it comes particularly to this economic power that we're talking about.
Wow, I need to be careful how I navigate this question, because I can be very political, and I don't want to get in trouble. I'm British, so I might get sent back on the next plane back to London. But I think they're controlling the coronavirus a little bit better over there right now. So you never know. I might say, let me take a hiatus and go back for 3 months or something. But no, here's the thing. We know that in terms of the collective, being corporate, there's a reason why corporate organizations have tremendous buying power and ability to do things, all right? If you look at different communities, and I like to study history a little bit, the Chinese communities, the Jewish communities, the Asian communities in many respects, and I come from London, I've seen this in the Indian community, how they cooperate with each other. Let me give an example. I love Chinese food, right? I really, I'm crazy. I love sushi, that kind of stuff. And if you know me, Danny, my sushi every other week, right? Okay. But I remember observing a restaurant that opened in Coventry in the UK. I used to live in Coventry in the UK, and it was great. It was like a kind of a they call it like a soup bowl, and they serve this pasta and soup and fish and all that kind of stuff. Really, really nice. But when the restaurant opened, I observed who were the customers that attended that restaurant. They were Chinese. They were using the restaurant and they were helping to build capital, build that business up. So it was family and friends and the community who actually supported that restaurant. And in a sense, that's being corporate, because that helped that restaurant establish. And before long, the wider community was using that restaurant, and it's a really great success. Hopefully COVID did not impact that business too much. I when I do go back there, I'm certainly going to visit. Go back to Coventry, that is. So here's the thing about being corporate: togetherness. And when I think about small businesses, and if I speak to the minority community and some of the challenges that we face, one of the key things, one of the important observations I believe I've made is the lack of cohesiveness, the lack of togetherness, the lack of organization. All right. And why is that important? An organization that is together, the unions can speak to this, because you look at the unions over the last 100 years in this country, and certainly coming out of the UK with the miners and the metal workers and all these different groups. They organize for better pay, they organize for better working conditions, and they have a better, if you like, employer contract, a social contract with their employees, in terms of, we are working for you, we are building value and so forth. Why is that important? Collectively, you can force change. Yes, you can make things happen. You can negotiate better prices. You can have a stronger and a much more important seat at the table. You talk about advocacy and Albany and city and local governments. If there is only 10 of you, but if there is 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 small businesses joining together to say, how can we make things better for us as a group, as a community, makes a big difference. It makes a difference in terms of your buying power. It makes a difference in terms of your resource pool. It makes a difference in terms of how you can team. I know the city talked about teaming some time ago, working together. Look at business, look at the social networks, the way people find commonality, the way they find groups and where there is interest together and collaborate and talk. You imagine if we had a business network, talk about minority business, if we came together in the same way. And I know there are issues around trust and Minnewanka. Sorry, I'm going into patois. Minnewanka people for normal business and all that kind of stuff, right? It is very strong in our community, right? And that is almost, I understand, you want to be private and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to business, I've seen people who are enemies collaborate because the greater good is that we want to make money, and it's really important to understand being corporate has so much more value, and it brings so much more value to the corporate, the body, the corporate body and the group. There's a saying, the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. And for too long, I believe, we've operated in silos, we've operated independently, we have not really trusted, we've not really built collaboration, built stronger networks and so forth. And the net result is to our own detriment. It is the fact that we see we do have a lot of successes, but at the same time, there are too many failures, I believe. All right. So being corporate, I think, has some important influence, buying power, advocacy. Here's one other thing that I observed: being able to shape the contracting policies. Right? Do you know that? You think about that for a moment. If you read some of the contracts that are out there for businesses, even when it comes to MWBE utilization, read the contracts. I mean, I've looked at some of these, and it's crazy. I mean, that same example I gave of the person who was buying, goods for one of the city agency, I looked at the contract, and it required that a business to hold, listen to this, something like $250,000 worth of stock. It was complete and utter nonsense. It was a barrier to entry, because what it meant was, if you were any ordinary business, you could not, and we had to be clever in the way we did this, but it was a complete nonsense. And when you look at that contract on its face, you realize that it excluded certain type of businesses. So being able to be corporate, you can influence how some of these contracts are even drafted. And that's another big criteria, because guess what? An agency can say, well, the contract says you need to have $250,000 worth of stock, carrying stock. Let me have a look at the warehouse. I'm sorry, but you can't deliver on this contract. And I've seen situations where that actually stopped, or it almost stopped individuals move forward. So, being corporate is able to change some of those things. We have a pool of resources. We can change policies. It improves our buying power. Oh my God, buying power. Just think about that for a moment. They talk about group purchasing organization in businesses, and someone like a Ford Motor Vehicles, they can, attract tremendous discount in terms of pricing. Most of our small businesses, they go down to Home Depot, yeah, and places like that. It is Home Depot, right?
There is a Home Depot.
and you can influence some of those guys in terms of prices. But imagine if you went to Home Depot and said, you know what, we have a membership base of 100,000 or 500,000 people. Imagine being able to sit in the room with Home Depot and says, now, what's the best price for lumber? You with me? What's the best price? When I came here last week, it was, let's say for argument, $10 a foot, whatever, I don't know, but $3. But now we are buying not just we're not just buying a quantity of 100, but we want to negotiate prices for a quantity of 500,000 or 1 million. I'm just giving some numbers there to compare. It makes a big difference. You with me? So one of the things that my agency is trying to do is think about how we can organize small and minority businesses to come together in a collective. And I see a day when we can, as a community, I'm going political here, please forgive me, can create our own institutions, can create our own financial institutions, can build our own capital base, can create our own commercial banks, right? It is not beyond us. You think about this for a moment. If you had 1 million businesses and each of those businesses, Mark, let's contribute $10 a month. You think about that. How many of us lose $10 a month, right? Sometimes when you go through the MTA store, we lose $10 a month because you kind of check your card through twice. You just lose it without even thinking, for example. But $10 a month, 1 million, that's $10 million a month, right? That's $120 million a year. What can an organization do with $120 million or $50 million or $25 million? Imagine if you could put half of that into some kind of capital fund. Imagine if you could convince some of these philanthropic organizations and said, help some of our minority businesses. And they say to us, what are you going to put in? I'm going to put in 10 million. Why don't you match that with 10 million? You have 20 million straight away. What can you do with 20 million? I would say to Mr. Doris, why don't I add $20 million to the contract financing loan fund? But let's kind of change the criteria a bit. And we should be able to negotiate some better terms, right? Because we have skin in the game. We don't have skin in the game. So the rules of that game is not shaped by us. All right. And we have to really change the dynamics of this. But to change the dynamics, it means being corporate. It means, organizing ourselves better. And, I don't want to sound like Mr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King, but we need to have a vision of ourselves. We need to envision ourselves in a much better place than where we are. And it's not enough for us to just say to ourselves, oh my God, we're just beaten down, we're downtrodden, la da da da. I'm always, what can I do to change the situation kind of guy? What can I do to make a difference? Right? And don't tell me 10 million people have tried it before. I haven't tried it yet. You with me? I haven't tried it yet.
So can we jump in and add it based on what you're saying? And you talked about we're talking about the corporate body of us as minority businesses, and you have this platform. So how do you intend to, with your vision and how you feel about this, to bring minority business owners together to be able to operate as a corporate body, to be able to take advantage of resources, like you talked about Home Depot and being able to reduce, pricing of resources?
Sign up, become a member. All right. We want to become a member. And I say member with responsibilities. I have a mission. I want to have 1 million small and minority businesses on our platform by 2022. I call it our Vision 2022. All right. Vision 2022. Once we, and as we build our base, as we build our numbers, a number of things will happen. We want to be able to influence the general contractors, the construction management companies, large corporate organization, and say to them, here's 1 million businesses. We're asking for a fair share of opportunities. The law requires 30%. Let's begin to share what these opportunities are. That's number one. We need to basically bring all, I know there's city records online, but that's just one source. And that's one of the problems I have with the city. Data is just fragmented everywhere. Every agency has its own stuff going on. And it just makes no sense to me. If you're city government, you should probably consolidate certain things in just one place. Okay. It's too fragmented, but that's something else for another time. But once you have that organization in place, you are able to say, let's bring in opportunities, consolidate them, let's refine them, and let's target those opportunities to where the skill sets are, in terms of organization and their experiences. So make that available and visible so these small businesses can see it and access it in a much more efficient way. That's, I think, the first thing. The second thing that we want to then deal with is how do we create our own, improve our access to capital. And I can say one of the things that we are looking at as an agency is how we create even our own private capital funds, right? We're in conversations about how this can be done. I know it can be done. In one of my previous role, and I work within a faith-based organization, I just share this with you because I think it's an important example of this. We organize a number of local church organizations, and individually, each church had something like, I don't know, argument's sake, $100,000 in their account. But aggregated, it was millions of dollars. We were able to work with a corporate banker, Royal Bank of Scotland, and aggregate all of these funds into one account, what I call a corporate account. So if you think about a credit union today, all right, it's the same principle. But it gave the organization the power it needed, right, to fund its own project. It had its own funding engine, if you like. You with me? And what I realized is once we have that capital position, that fund, that corporate treasury fund, we called it, we only needed 30% from the bank. The bank gave us 30%, and we could fund pretty much anything we want, as long as we came up with 30%. We came up with 30%. The bank came up with 70%. You with me? So what am I saying here? If we could create our own capital fund, and I'm sure that there are organizations out there. I know that there is capital flowing around the world. I know there's some big capital out of Europe. I was looking at a project some time ago where I know there were private capital prepared to invest, and I have some plans for the city here, some ideas here as to how we could actually attract private capital to help out in this regards, and to reduce some of the waiting times for some of anyway, that's another matter. But we can create these capital sources, and we can make a difference. And so as an agency, I believe if we can look at this from the private sector, and how can we make this happen? Rather than saying, let me just wait on someone else to do it, can I do it? And I believe we have the knowledge, we have the skill sets, we have the experience. There are a lot of guys who work in banking, a lot of people. I'm speaking with someone right now who knows how this can be done. And as long as we can get we can attract some of this capital, these private capital, we can actually determine the lending criteria for this capital and make some of this happen. So as an agency, coming back to your question, Danielle, I think we're going to make a difference. And first of all, let me slow down, I'm getting very excited here. We can make a difference by one, organizing. The unions did it. I'm not saying we're a union, but you take an example of how the unions organize. Once we've organized, we can actually have a stronger conversation, let's say, with some of these general contractors and others. Says, I want all of your opportunities. I want you to place it on our website because we want our minority companies to be able to see all these things, all these opportunities in one place. They haven't got time to be searching from left, right, and all over the place trying to find out what is going on. I've seen situations. It's so funny. This contractor, sub MW, minority company said to me, "Mark, there is a project happening next door to me. Why is it that my company can't work on this project?" And the same situation with in Queens with the JFK project, right? You had local businesses who were adamant, we want to participate on this project. It's in our own backyard. Why can't we do that? So being organized will enable us to have a much more forceful word and be upfront and center in some of these decision-making processes. We can influence a lot more. We can exert more pressure, in the right measures and where it is needed most. So for me, our agency, we're not saying we're going to solve the world's problem, but where we can solve some problems, we're certainly going to try and do so. It's a big vision, yes. It's a mountain to climb, yes, but I'm putting on my mountain boots. I'm getting the ropes together. And, those who are of a willing mind, let's go do that and let's make that happen. Okay?
Well, we definitely hear your passion, and we're excited because of the passion that you have. So, Stacie, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and just share your agency information. Everyone is hearing you talk so passionately about it. So we've brought it up on the screen so that folks can know how to visit and find out more information on what you have and all the different solutions. You have COVID information, you have services, tax litigation. I mean, I love the bold and really just courageous 1 million goal to have businesses. I mean, that's when you really have power, is when you can pool economic resources and really look at together as one. I mean, that to me just speaks volumes of the work that you're doing, and the sky's the limit. I believe we live under an open heaven. So there's nothing impossible. For me, faith is my grounding. So, God put certain gifts and talents in us so that we can execute and that we can have vision and that we can bring people together. And why this show has been such a resource for so many individuals, because it's giving you a chance to reimagine what we can actually do in real time, how we can work with other people, and how we can position ourselves to be better post what we're seeing, what we're experiencing. It will not last forever. Things will shift and change. So where are you going to be once everything moves? And, we're coming to the top of the show. And I mean, Mark, clearly you could be here all day just giving insight on issue after issue that we can solve in real time. And I really hope our audience has been taking very copious notes on just some of the basics that we can utilize in preparing ourselves for that strong foundation. So I just want you to highlight anything on the site before Danielle closes out our show today that you want everyone to be aware
of. You mean on the website?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm having my laptop is playing up all day today. But certainly, if you look at the website, we talk about opportunities, and we talk about capital, and we talk about, okay, my website is up. We talk about opportunities, capital, and various services. So opportunities, our goal here is to create something which is called Project Finder, which we're going to be launching shortly. And Project Finder is going to be the ability for general contractors. I know, Danielle, we're working on something here. General contractors, construction managers right across the city. We want for this to be the go-to source for opportunities for small and minority businesses. I believe we need to carve out our own infrastructure where the opportunities are placed, where we can see them. A lot of our guys are busy. They really don't have the time to be searching all over, the internet and various agency websites, city records online. They need to have somewhere where they can go, and we want to provide one-to-one support for these individual companies that become members. We want to talk about capital. We're doing some things on capital. But one of the first things that we want to do, and we're trying to do this, I'm making an appeal to every community development financial institution in the city. We want to basically list all of the loan products that you have. When COVID hit, okay, many businesses came and says, where do I get financial support? They just did not know about community development financial institutions. They just didn't know. They did not even know the products they have. And so what we're trying to say here is we want to aggregate all of those things, bring them all into one place to ensure that there is just a very simple lookup, and we're going to be reaching out to CDFIs and other community banks to say, let us know what your loan products are so that we can publish them. One of the things that we're going to be able to do with data, by the way, we've aggregated a lot of the databases around the country. So we have over 600,000 records in our databases or in our database already. We want to reach out to these individual companies. I lost my train of thought a little bit here, to say, okay, you can find these capital products. We want them to list, the CDFIs to list those products so that they can be found. The other is services. We're going to look at how we can reduce the cost of back office services. We're bringing on a number of CPAs, professional service providers. And the idea here is we want to connect these two together. Small businesses need good professional service providers, and we're looking at how we can organize the delivery of this service in a way that is much more cost effective and easier to access, certainly in a virtual way. And tax incentives, we're just learning a lot more about this. We're working with a number of partners with how to generate income streams really from tax and from tax savings and incentive programs that many of us just are not aware of. The IRS, they have a number of incentives that are available. If, for example, if you own a property, greater than $500,000 in value, we figured out that you can actually save up to $40,000 per million in value of that property. Yes, as a return. Doing something which is called a cost segregation study, which is a hybrid of both engineering as well as accounting. And many, property owners don't know about it. So if you own a hotel, if you own a restaurant, if you own a commercial building in the city, give us a call. There's a lot of money there. And then finally, you can see here we have an e-commerce store on the website, which we're building out. And as you can see, we've just partnered with a number of manufacturers. We're looking at a response to COVID, but this is what's going to happen. Imagine as we have more and more members coming onto our platform, goodness me, I can't wait for that day when we sit down with some of these manufacturers, these providers, Dell Computers, some of the, and say, we want better prices for our community. So the more that join, the more we're going to be able to reduce these prices. As you can see here, we're looking at, we've signed off recently an agreement to supply these rapid test kits for COVID-19. So the antibody test, the antigen test, we believe that, our employers and medical institutions need to have these so that, more and more people can be tested and have results more quickly so that they can, know that they are safe to work and get back to work as soon as possible. So these are important things that we're looking at on the website. So we have a membership. Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, this is a bounty of information, and we're at the top of the show. So I wanted to make sure folks knew how to get to the website as we close out. Mark, you were a phenomenal guest. Danielle is going to wrap us on up today. But I really hope that everybody was able to take notes. We've put the information here on how to go to your website, and we'll be sharing that out more broadly. So we thank you for being a guest. And Danielle, over to you as we close out another impactful show, real-time issues and solutions for our MWBEs from the ground up. And we look forward to, Mark, your continued vision and how that plays out in helping our communities and businesses to grow.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here today. Thank you, Stacie and Danielle.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Stacie, as well. Again, as Stacie said, I hope that you got a lot of information. But as I always say, if you don't apply the knowledge rightly, then it's for naught. So it was a lot. Mark threw a lot at you. As Stacie said, I hope you took notes. and you think about, I think the take home message for me is, how do we begin to operate as a collective body, however that looks, so that we can move as one and begin to be taken seriously. We live in a capitalistic society, and we have to understand that when we operate as one and we take our dollars elsewhere, we demand what is our due right, then we can move mountains. So again, we're here to offer you real-time solutions for your real-time issues, and we hope to see you again next week, Tuesday at 9:00. We're looking forward to it. But until then, make it happen and be productive.